Welcome to Start Lines and Swag Bags. The airing of this podcast is for entertainment purposes only and is not intended to replace advice from professional medical or training staff. Thank you for listening and your support of the Flying Pig Project.
Hello and welcome to the first guest episode of Start Lines and Swag Bags in 2025. Why am I laughing? I will tell you why. So, I am doing some back-to-back recording for those of you who are, really on when these things launch and you listen or watch them, I'm doing several in a row. And I talked in the episode that dropped Thursday how I've switched from a chair back to my standing desk. And the very first thing that came out of my mouth when I started to try to record this intro was I'm still standing. And then I proceeded to break into song that would not have, Elton John would not have liked it. But I had to stop and start the recording all over again for that reason. And that's why I'm a little giddy. I'm also a little giddy because, I'm realizing that if you are watching, you can see this beautiful sweatshirt I have, which is the start of what is going to be some Flying Pig Project merchandise that I'm going to work on dropping, hopefully by February. So there's that. But let's talk about the really, really, really exciting news. So today, whenever, you're going to be listening to my interview with Sabrina Ehmke, the founder of the Skokie Swifters Run Walk Club. But friends, that is literally just scratching the surface of this amazing human being. All of my guests are so special to me in many different ways. But when you listen to my interview with Sabrina, you're going to understand how two people can maybe talk, maybe see each other, hopefully once or twice a year. Okay, maybe three. But still pick up where we left off, the same brain, same thoughts about many things surrounding running. There's a very quick story right off in the beginning about how she and I were at two different places at the same time, but shared something very funny. She couldn't believe I brought that up. But even so much to our opinions on how I'm going to grab my notes for this to make sure I get it right. We talked about how you cannot compare your journey to anybody else's journey. We talked about, hold on. Oh, this is the big one. She talks in there, and I think a lot of people are going to relate to this. People who make comments like, you're not a runner unless. You're not a runner unless you run a marathon. You're not a runner unless you run the whole thing. No, we want to step out of that whole mentality. That's a terrible, terrible mentality to have. And she and I are able to discuss that. And the last thing we talk about, when we were talking about advice, and this has come up in a lot of episodes when we talk about running groups, not necessarily, formal running groups, a running partner, somebody that, a couple of people and you train with. It doesn't have to be something so formal as an actual running group, but it's the whole idea of, you can do this thing called running alone. You can train alone. You can do all this. But why? Why do you want to do that? Maybe you are more of a loner. I am 100% more of a loner. But I see the benefit in sharing my experiences with other people who can support me in a variety of ways. And that gets discussed in this episode. I'm not going to say any more because I want you all to hear her words, her thoughts. I know definitely we're going to see her back on the show at another time. But for now, please enjoy this episode. And as always, thank you so much for your support. All right. Welcome, Sabrina. Welcome to Start Lines and Swag Bags.
Thank you, Rachel. I'm very excited to be here, and we're already having fun.
All right. So, listen, as I've said in an earlier episode,
if you have the over or under on how many takes it took to get this started, we actually 3. So that's fairly good for me.
Yeah. 1, 2, tree, like we're from Chicago or something.
Pat yourself on the back.
Okay. All right.
We did good there.
We did it.
All right. Sabrina, tell us anything and everything you'd like to tell us about yourself.
Oh my goodness, that is a big question. Well, hello everybody. My name is Sabrina Ehmke. I wear many hats in my life. Literally. One of those hats is being the founder and lovingly called Captain Swifter of the Skokie Swifters Run Walk Club. Extended from that, you may have already listened to an episode with my coaching partner, John McCarthy. We started Stay Swifty, Stay You Run coaching services. I am also a high school psychology teacher. I sometimes moonlight at the local college for psychology classes as well. I also teach civics, a variety of other history classes. And I guess most recently and most proudly, I'm a 6-star World Marathon Majors finisher and also a half marathon finisher on the continent of Antarctica. So life has been very good, very interesting lately. I was actually doing some other things over the last 2 years other than full-time teaching. So I got to dive into the running world more and worked at Fleet Feet for a time, which was great. And I loved that experience. Really got to know a lot more about running, and which kind of led to wanting to get into coaching a lot more too. So yeah, that's a little bit about me.
That's a little bit. Now, if you're listening, I get it. There is no way this one person gets a 30-minute show, but we're going to do a 30-minute show.
Honored.
And then, well, I mean, Sabrina, you rattled off like, 8 things, and I love all 8. But there's one in particular that I just want to share a funny story about.
Okay.
And that is when you were working for Fleet Feet. You and I share a love of a certain profession. Do you remember what that profession is?
Oh,
by chance?
No,
They come on a big red truck.
Oh, we can't talk about this too much because they still go there. But yes, the wonderful. Listen, we are grateful for all of our emergency responders in this world, and Rachel and I have a special place in our heart for the firefighter.
And one day I don't know what I was doing. And I thought, actually, it was very exciting for me because I think you were at work in your small, local running store. Mm-hmm. I was at work at my small local running store because I do that as a side gig. And you texted me that there were firefighters in your store. And at that moment, we had the strangest bonding experience ever.
Jeez. I can't believe that is funny. That you know what that is though? That is also just like the joy of what comes out of knowing people through certain communities. And, had you not been working at your running store and I wasn't working at my running store, like we would have never had that shared experience. So it's these little moments that just come out of nowhere sometimes that you get to laugh over.
It is. And, when it comes to our friendship, I treat those a little more special because unfortunately you and I definitely do not get to be in person as much as either one of us would prefer.
Absolutely.
But it's like these little nuggets we have that we weren't even in person that day. And we still have those little nuggets and those still experiences together that we can laugh about. And you're still like, I can't believe she brought that up. or that she remembered.
Well, I'm not surprised you remembered. I'm like, oh, she brought it up though. Now I feel a little embarrassed. But so I think that's like the kind of a larger extension of that is when you think about these pockets of the running community, you may have never met these people in real life, but you still can have these connections with them. I think a good example of that is actually somebody you had on your show most recently, Andy Allen, who is a gem of a human and I adore greatly. And I've gotten to know him very well through those pockets online, but then they've translated into in person too. And then that makes those in-person moments so much more special because you already have these jokes established, and you already know this person a little bit through those communication pockets that you've had.
100%. And I agree with you in the accolades that we give Andy, and he would be like, "Stop."
He would absolutely
stop. No.
He'd
But
be
the
like,
funny thing
but you are. I'm like, okay,
Yes.
but you are too, Andy. So there. Haha.
But if I had not met you, I would not have known about For the Run. I would not have joined the Pacer Project, and I would not have connected with Andy.
Yeah.
Which it's interesting to see the evolution purely based on almost social media.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's important to remember, because I think sometimes we can, if we're not feeling our best, or if we're feeling like we didn't, regarding running, like try hard enough or had a good run, like social media can also not be great, right? Like there's a lot of comparison. There's a ton of like, oh, I should do that, but why? Like, what's my own reason for doing that? Is just because somebody else is. And so I think it's important to remember those positive things that come out of it when we're stuck in the negativity sometimes.
Totally agree. All right. So now we're going to jump into, because there are some questions that I do like to ask.
Okay.
And the first question, of course, is swag. I don't know. Now, I'm having so much trouble with my bracket and narrowing it down. I don't know how you're going to tell me your favorite swag.
Okay.
But what is your favorite swag?
Well, that was very hard for me to choose. And so unfortunately, I didn't do the assignment as written. I have two favorite pieces of swag. And as a teacher, listen, I'm just going to give myself a passing grade for this one. But, I've been running for 20 plus years and racing and a lot of that. Plus, I've done 10 marathons. I've done countless half marathons. And so, there's a lot of swag laying around my house, much to my husband's dismay, although his cycling swag is starting to take over, too, because he's gotten into racing also. So, first and foremost, I think probably people could have guessed this, but my one piece is my 6-star finishers medal from the World Marathon Majors. I wish I could take it off the wall. This is actually, so for people that can't see this right now, it's the medal that is wrapped around a wooden piece. And this particular wooden piece goes into a frame that has all the other 6 medals. And so it's a larger, you could see it on Etsy. It's like 6-star finisher medal frame. And so they all go together. And I just remember running these marathons thinking like someday, how am I going to frame all of them together? So that is one piece. Do you want me to tell you the second one?
What? Hold
Okay,
on.
okay.
What did you name her?
Oh, so because I earned her, my 6th race was in Tokyo in 2023, and it was about just right around cherry blossom season. I named her Sakura, which is cherry blossom in Japanese. So she had a very special trip after we went to Mount Fuji, and we did all this great stuff together.
Mm-hmm. Okay, now you can tell me about your second piece.
All right. So the second piece is a one-time deal. Probably like a lot of the races that we do, I think sometimes we might go back to try to get a new PR, or just to go with friends, or just to try just to try it again, see the place again that we went to if we're traveling. This is probably a one and done, most likely. But this is my Antarctica half marathon medal that I earned this past March when I went there on a 2-week trip with Marathon Tours, who are a wonderful company to travel with if you need a racecation. But it has, I'll just describe it. It's got like mountains in the back. It's got a sunrise. It's got 3 little penguins. It's got the shape of King George Island on it, which is the peninsula that juts off of the continent, which is actually where we ran. And yeah, it's one of my other babies. Doesn't have a name, but maybe we should give it one.
Well, so 2 things. I could have bet you $1 million. I knew hands down what was coming. But I want to talk about the Antarctica for a second, because when you were there were so many of us living vicariously through those amazing pictures of the penguins and the whales and just all of it. But I have the honor of having the shirt you are wearing have its own photo shoot in Antarctica.
You sure do. Yeah. That was very cool of you to make this for me, for my 6-star finisher. On the back, it says, "In my 6-star finisher era," and it's in purple too. Rachel, that was very kind of you. And I feel like a lot of people out there, this will resonate with them. It's like when you're going somewhere to run a race, or even if you're just traveling, you're like, what of my race swag am I going to take so people know I'm a runner? And if I've done a marathon, which of my marathon shirts am I going to bring so they not only know I'm a runner, but they know I'm a marathoner? And so I knew this one had to come with me, because when else? I mean, maybe you'll have another friend go to Antarctica someday, but I wanted your swag to get to Antarctica.
First of all, how can I not love that? Second of all, I will be sure to include, it's that picture of you, you're turned around and your arms up and your head's looking back, and it's so cute.
Thank
and
you.
I will put it in the notes.
Great.
All right. Do you have a worst swag?
I could not, I'll be honest, I could not think of anything. And as I was listening to some of your other guests on your other episodes, something that Andy said resonated with me, how he said there's not really a worst, although he did kind of come up with one. Teaser, go listen to his episode. But, he said that every race is special, and I agree. I mean, they may not all be best races. They may not all be, the most fun ones that we do ever. And some of them hurt a lot if you're in pain or you're just not happy with your performance. But I do think each swag item, no matter what it is, if it's a medal, a shirt, really it gives you that memory. And, a lot of people have, they've got their like kind of like this, they're metal racks. This is one of like 5 that I have. But, each of those means something in some way, which shapes you into the runner that you are, for better and worse, right? We learn from those bad ones.
That's true. But I'm going to ask you in your now binge of my show to wherever you are, stop. Well, don't stop on Andy's finishes, but stop. Go back to episode 2, which is Nicole, and she was talking about her bad swag, which was after a local race, someone offered to measure her.
Oh, I did hear this part. Yeah, I have to go back and listen to this. I did hear it in the Andy episode, but I need to go back and listen to her describe it from her perspective.
Yeah. I mean,
no.
I'm still, because I call everything that you can get from a race swag. So my definition is very, very broad.
Sure.
And to me, someone offering me a massage, or I'm blank, Athletico offers you a post-race evaluation or something like that. That makes total sense to me, and that's part of swag. But somebody coming at me with a measuring tape,
it's a little much.
You need to back away.
Well, you didn't ask for it, right? Like you didn't ask and say like, I would like this service today. Yeah.
I would not like that service any day.
Ever.
I would not like it with a fox, and I would not like it in a box.
All right, Dr. Seuss.
Okay. Yeah, I know. All right. So we go listen, we go everywhere on this show. You never know where the show's going. Okay,
it's like a trail run. You just never know sometimes where you're going to end up.
That's totally true, and that's why I think that's why people actually listen to me. Okay, so now we go to advice. Mm-hmm. Now, I do understand you are a certified run coach, but I do, of course, have the disclaimer at the beginning of the episode that tells people, please don't take whatever we give you, good or bad, and go do it. I'm not responsible for that. So with that, I think for you, I'm gonna phrase it like this: before or during your journey to where you've become now, in the beginning, what do you think was some really good advice you got, or some really bad advice that you were told?
Good or bad? So yes, as Rachel mentioned, I'm a certified running coach through the Road Runners Club of America, RRCA. And, I think one like you said, you have your disclaimer at the beginning. I think one thing that I always stress to my athletes that I'm working with is like, I am not a doctor. I'm not a nutritionist. You know, these recommendations that I give you are mostly based on like my past experience. But if you want something like prescribed to you, or if you want something that's actually like, I don't know, diagnosed or whatever, right? Like you have to go see those people who are those experts. I'm just the certified in the running aspect. But in terms of advice, you know, I'm trying to think of something that has been said to me, but I'd like to, if you don't mind, say something that I've heard my athletes say that I've said to them. That was very circular, but I will say like the last 6 to 7 months or so of really being a run coach has really made me like find this shift in like who I am as a runner in a very positive way. It feels as though like I've in some ways like laid this path, and there's now all these people who, some of whom never thought they could do the things that they've done, and all of a sudden they've finished a marathon in the last week. And that feels very humbling, first of all. It also feels very special, like a bond now that has come up through this different role that I'm playing of a coach. And so, you know, one thing that I've heard my athletes say that I say to them is that you have to remember that this is what works for you. And it is so hard to not compare ourselves sometimes. I know you've talked about this on this pod before with other guests about Strava comparisons and looking at social media and seeing those comparisons. But I think one thing that I've clearly imparted on them, which they've taken because I hear it, is that this is your journey, and this is, I know that's very cliche, but you have to make it work for you. And ultimately, most of us are not sponsored athletes. And so, you know, this should be something that's fun. This should be something that's recreational. And actually, I will say that's something my husband and I talk a lot about too, because he's very into cycling, but at a recreational level. And we say that jokingly, like if one of us comes in from a run or a ride and we're like, oh, how'd it go, honey? And the other one's like, it was all right. Like, and then the other person will say like, well, you know, you better get back out there because your sponsors are going to drop you and like, you'll never know what you're going to do next. Right. Like, so it's the joke, but it's also the seriousness of it is like, we have to just make this work for us. And whether that means showing up to a run club and walking a mile and then coming back and hanging out with people and then getting inspired to go register for a marathon, great. Mm-hmm. Or if it means, you know, you're into your running a marathon and you've, you know, been going for this goal, you're trying to achieve this goal and you're doing it over and over, like that's also acceptable. Like we have to get away from these, and this is going well beyond your question now, I think, but I do think it's an important point to address is I think we have to get away from this, like, you're not a runner unless, right? Or you're not a runner unless you do this thing, or if you were a runner, you would. Like, no, like you get to do what you want. And, you know, as long as it helps you to feel better, that's great. And I think it's also important to recognize the spaces that, you know, we could expand more to and think about who is represented and what does running mean to different groups of people. So I think the piece of advice is mostly like, make it work for you. And if it's not, there's different ways of trying things to add so that it can work for you maybe. So I'm going to cut it there because that was kind of a long-winded answer, but thank you for letting me share it.
Well, no, but okay. But see, to your point, and here's the whole thing. As the podcast goes on, and as I talk to more people, a lot of answers become very consistent. So some of the questions have been modified slightly. For example, I haven't gotten there yet, but I will be asking you your favorite distance. Now, for the first 10 episodes, everybody said the same distance. I'm like, well, I got to change that. And when it comes to advice, most people in their answer include, it has to be your journey. You're the one on it. Stop comparing yourself to others. If you have to walk, oh my God, just walk. All these things that a lot of people have some very deep misconceptions about. Mm-hmm. Person after person after person is repeating them on this show. And I will never take that out because someone out there is going to hear it said once and be like, eh. Mm. They'll hear it 3 times and be like, whatever. But they'll hear it for the 18th or 25th time. However many people want to say it. And finally, it's like that breakthrough that you have. Mm-hmm. When we start running careers, I know at least when I did, comparison, oh my God, the comparison. So deep.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I especially in light of my injury in May where I broke the foot and I actually haven't run since, I have nothing to compare. I don't need to prove anything. I'm over that. And I think that's a certain maturity level that you reach.
Well,
to understand it's your journey.
And that's the key piece there is I was the same. Like when I've been doing this for 20 years, I've had a long time to understand who I am as a runner, who I am outside of running. And I still don't, I think that's part of growing. Even as an adult, we're always learning about ourselves. And so I've had this distance though from, my early 20s when I started running to now to really do a lot of the running things. And so at this point in my life, like of course I have some goals that I still want to accomplish, but I've accomplished a lot. And I also feel like I've learned from that. And it's that maturity piece and like that you're speaking about. It's understanding that, you don't have to compete and you can, right? Like I'm not suggesting there's anything wrong with that. We have plenty of Swifters who are gunning for those age group awards and we love it, right? We love to celebrate them and their achievements. And equally, we love to celebrate the people that are getting out there, and I think maturity is realizing also that both of those are equally valuable goals. And that's truly one thing I love about the Swifters is that I believe we recognize that in people. And that's important.
I thoroughly agree. So was that, I feel like that advice was all encompassing best and worst. Or did you have a specific worst?
Yeah, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah, actually, so this is I guess I could share a little bit about like a worst experience I had with training. Early on, I'll just be very vague with this because I don't want to like call any groups out or anything. But early on in my running career, I was part of a program that included for a marathon. It included a 20-mile run, a 23-mile run, and a 26-mile run. And that was also after a 16 and 18, like those teen runs also. So as a running coach, and I do believe like we've kind of come a long way from that. Like if you're not an elite athlete and you're training for a marathon, generally speaking, 20 to 22 miles is your cap for your longest run. And you might do that twice, depending on your fitness level, depending on how long you've been running, experience, all sort of things. But I believe that you cannot go so far in your training because it will give you nothing left for race day. And sure enough, I got injured on that 23-mile training run. I was out for about 2 weeks, not running at all. And had maybe like a week or two to just get some like shakeout stuff in. And I finished the marathon, but I walked half of it. I got to about the halfway point running and just that injury, popped back and great. I'm very happy that I finished. I just knew from that moment, like, this is probably not where I want to go in my running. Like I want to continue doing marathons, but that particular kind of training, it wasn't doing it for me.
You bring up a very interesting point because for as many runners as there are training plans for all of those runners.
Yeah.
And the number one question I would always get asked in the store or by someone in my groups or whatever was, which plan should I follow? Mm-hmm. Okay, listen. No one, and it's tricky because no one can answer that for you. Mm-hmm. Because I could tell you this one, I had success with this one, and it may not work for you. or, so-and-so had success with this one, but it may not work for you. You have to, it's trial and error.
Yeah.
Which is rough considering it's marathon training, but it really is it's nutrition is trial and error. What you wear is trial and error.
Absolutely.
All your runs are trial and error.
I mean, this is a shameless plug right now. As I'm a running coach, I believe you should have a running coach, especially if you're going for these big goals. Okay. But seriously, if, running has grown exponentially in the last 5 to 10 years, I would say. And I think run coaching has also grown like that. Mm-hmm. And one of the benefits to that is that, if you have the means, right? I understand that not everybody has the means for it, but if you have the means, you can find a coach that will tailor to you. And I think that's one of the things I try to stress with my athletes that is so important is communication. This plan that I'm making is tailored with you in mind and will be changed and adapted as we go throughout the training process based on what happens to you. And that's why, finding a training plan online is fine, but if you have somebody there to talk you through it and to also then adapt it to you, I mean, your success, I think, is going to be even greater otherwise.
I think the key point in that is really the adapting.
Yeah.
I know people who have run first marathons in the past, 4 or 5 years, and were so resistant to make a modification to a plan because they almost saw that as a failure, or they would start to get injured, but they wouldn't take the week off they needed because they have to stick to the plan. And I agree about the running coach. If you have the means, I do, but at least have someone whom you do trust,
yeah,
to help you navigate certain elements along the way. I think is it's very important. Coach or friend or someone, someone to tell you can take a week off at week 8 and you'll be fine.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's one of the benefits of having like a run group or a run club or something too. Like, there were a couple of people who are my friends that weren't necessarily my athletes, but that asked for questions because they were running the first marathon. And, you have this, it's not just me, right? They can ask anybody that, has been through this in the group, and you're going to get probably 5 different answers, but then you can decide also what is best for you. Like, that's why, again, I just say that communication piece is so important because you need to have somebody to bounce those worries, concerns, and ideas off of, especially if you're just jumping into it for the first time. 100%.
I mean, literally, see, this is a conversation that you and I could turn this into an episode by itself.
Heck yeah.
Because we're so much on the same page when it comes to, and my whole message that if anybody's taking a message away from my shows, it's your journey. You have to make it your own.
Yeah.
There are people along the way that are going to provide you with information. I had somebody on the show. Oh my gosh, this was so funny. And we were talking about advice, and she was telling me all this advice she asked for. I'm like, yeah, I know. I'm the one who gave it to you. and you didn't follow it. And that was fine because she reached her goal. But, so, what are you going to do?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, and just, that's the other thing about run coaching that's been interesting too, is like, you will lay out this plan for somebody and then sometimes they don't follow it or they skip it or whatever. But that's also part of the learning process too. And as a coach, I value those lessons as well. Like, you didn't do this. Why? And like, part of it is whatever's happening in your life, but is there something about what I've suggested to you or what I've tried to have you do and maybe it felt too hard or you weren't sure? Like, that helps me develop as a coach too then. So it's a very like mutually beneficial relationship, I think.
It's always trying to find, and I think maybe it's because, what you teach, what your background is, what I teach, what my background is, we're always looking for the why.
Yeah.
The why behind the behavior.
Yeah.
I set out this plan for you, and for whatever reason, it didn't work that day or that week. Why? Like, what can we what changes can we make so that next time we set you up a little better for success?
Absolutely. And again, I'll just stress the piece of communication. Like, I've had great athletes this past season who, are willing to share. And that is really important, especially not just for like the training purposes, but also for building the relationship of trust between a coach and an athlete. I worked with a very wonderful coach. I just am not training for anything right now, so I'm not working with her, but she's been my coach on and off for about 6 years. And I trust her completely. She's gotten to me to many of my PRs, and that was a goal at the time. She's also like kept me healthy through training, which was another goal. And so, you have to establish that trust, and that can be hard without the communication.
That's true. All right. So I'm going to ask it the one way, and if you give me the same answer as everybody else, then I have to change it.
Oh, I know it's coming.
Yeah. Favorite race distance?
So I thought I would be cute and say something like 15K, just because it would be different. If I'm being truthful, it's probably the half marathon. But I will say this, aside from being snarky, I do think the 15K should be out there more. And I think it should be a more popular race distance. I think it's like the in-between, obviously, numerically wise, of course it is, between the 10K and the half marathon. But I teach psychology, not math. Just let me have this win.
But, okay.
But this is why, because the 15K, a lot of people say 10K is not great because by the time you get warmed up, by the time you get going, you get into your speed level, whatever, it's over, right? Half marathon is fantastic for travel, first time, long distance race distance for people to try out. You do most of the time, if you've trained, you come out of it feeling pretty good and you don't need as much recovery time, that sort of thing. I feel like the 15K can be a lot more fun than the 10K, and then you still have the benefits of not having worked as hard. Although you could argue that because it is a shorter long distance, you maybe do a little bit more speed work. But anyway, I'm just going to say for the child that doesn't get a lot of the attention, the 15K baby, we should bring it to more races. Race directors, if you're out there listening, give me more 15Ks.
Okay, but here's my question for you, because and I'll be darned if you didn't make my brain have to go into overtime, because I'm fairly well versed. Pat on my back here. I'm fairly well versed with probably 95% of the races that occur in our area, and I will say in our area. The only 15K I can think of is the hot chocolate 15K.
Yeah. Yes. I mean,
am I wrong in that?
No. I mean, I can't. Right now, if I just, I'm having 10 seconds to think about it, I can't think of another one off the top of my head. And I think that's the problem for this poor little baby.
Right. Well, I mean, because as you said it, I'm like, in my brain, I'm like, oh crap. I literally can only think of one.
Yeah.
Nobody has stumped me yet, and I'm like,
no. And I think what is interesting though is that you might see that distance in more trail stuff, but at least with road races, yes. I honestly cannot think of another 15K. I think those unique race distances are interesting, and it's not just because a lot of people don't ever run that distance, and so the first time they do, it's like an automatic PR, which is great. But I've seen a 6K race. The Shamrock Shuffle is 8K. I've seen a 12K before, and I think it'd be fun to kind of bring some of those out more.
How about here's my suggestion.
Okay.
Valid. How about we stick with a single measuring unit and just go with it?
Well,
okay, can we stop with the 5K, but it's 3.1, but it's a 10K, it's a 6.2.
I mean,
but it's an 8K because an 8K is not 5 miles.
No, it's like 4.97.
Yeah. So can we just all agree on a measurement?
You'll have to talk to the government about that one, I think, Rachel. I don't know.
Well, because even you go from the marathon 26.2 to a 50K,
right?
Yeah, Can we just call it 31 miles?
Fun fact, most people in a marathon are running an ultra anyway, right? Because you're not going to run the tangents. And so you usually walk out of there with 26.2 plus miles. So congratulations. Everybody that's a marathoner is an ultra marathoner.
I thought actually the definition of ultra really started at 25, but I could be.
Yeah, I
could be wrong about
don't
that.
know. I couldn't give you a fact on that either. I just like to make that joke because when you run a marathon, it's never just 26.2 miles.
Well, I hear especially, the walk back in New York, I hear that
listen.
makes it like, see, everybody gets it. Yeah.
Listen. And,
Go ahead.
it's interesting because, so just here's some advice, okay? If you are somebody who's going to run New York, I have, the only time I ran it in 2019. So maybe my memory is a little fuzzy on this. But when you register, you get two choices. You can choose to not check a bag, and then you will get, and honestly, this thing is fabulous. I wish I had brought it down as my swag. It's a hooded, fleece-lined, water-resistant cape, basically, but it's actually thick. So they will give that to you, and then you only have maybe about a mile walk out of Central Park. If you choose to gear check a bag, you will get your bag, but you will walk to the gear check after you cross the finish line, which is, I think it was like a mile or something. And then you still have a mile or so to get out of Central Park. So you will be warm with the cape they give you. Don't check a bag. That's my advice.
Well, be safe. Be safe in your knowledge that a published episode you haven't listened to yet, actually, that was the best swag.
Oh, excellent.
Yes, that has.
I have mine. It's 5 years old, but I got it.
When we talk about community and, people who I know maybe have done the same races or had, similar experiences, not in how they performed, but like in where they went and where they raced. It's funny because duplicates come up.
Yeah.
That has been mentioned. Okay. I feel like this one, and I know you know which one's coming next. I feel this one is really tricky. But your famous runner you want to meet?
Oh. So, I have thought about this question. I will start by saying I've been extremely fortunate to have met quite a few people that I would have wanted to meet. I've met Des Linden, I've met Kara Goucher, I've met Allison Mariella Desir, I've met Catherine Switzer, I've met someone that I'm not going to name that I don't think deserves his fame because anyway, I'm not going to go there. I feel like some people might know who I'm talking about in the male running field, but I'm not going to mention that. So I wouldn't want to meet him, even though I already did. So, I don't know. I'm trying to think back, to some of, these people that have paved the way and really set the standard for what it means, especially to be a woman runner. I have not yet met Dina Castor. She has been in some races that I've been to, just never got to coordinate that. I think meeting Jean-Benet Samuelson would be really amazing. Alison Felix. There's I can't just say one. I think women's running has really taken off, especially we say the running community and running in general has really grown exponentially. But I think we have a lot of specific women to thank for that too, that women feel a lot more comfortable now being in running. Women feel more comfortable running outside, even though there's still a lot of issues with that. And so,
yes.
I think we would be remiss if we didn't mention some of these names.
I do understand that angst that comes from me asking these questions because I think John was the one. You listened to John's. I know he started it. He invited 8 people to the dinner table, and because we would expect no less from John. So some of these are. It is very challenging. That's a question that I'm thinking how to maybe reword it. I don't know. Okay, now. I have no idea how I'm going to do it, so I have no idea how you're going to do it.
Oh, the suspense.
But but this is the favorite race. Like, this is it. That's the one that, if you could, I'm changing the way I describe it. As I'm going through my own bracket, this is one that if you could relive that experience again, that's the one. That's the one.
Okay. If you'll allow me, I would like to answer this question in two different categories.
Absolutely.
The one category is favorite race on a personal individual level, and then favorite race on a group or team or friend level.
Sure.
Okay, so individually, one of my favorites, sorry, it's not the favorite. One of my favorites is probably the 2018 Berlin Marathon. First of all, that race is equal, if not maybe a little bit more superior than Chicago in terms of crowd support. It is, and I love Chicago, but Berlin is top notch. The crowd support, it's also incredibly historic. The course itself runs through the most amazing sites that you would want to go see anyway if you were on there just for vacation or touring. I also was there with my mom. She came. A good friend of mine from way back when was also there. And I have family that lives in Munich, and these are cousins of ours, go back. And a couple of them came to Berlin for race day as well. So I think just having so much like personal support, and, don't get me wrong, obviously when you run Chicago, like all your friends are there and lots of family can come and that sort of thing. It just, being part of my heritage is German, like being there, seeing that with my German family. So that really meant a lot to me on a personal level. And then as far as the second category I've created out of thin air is probably, there's two, it's tied. It's either Skokie's Backlot Dash 5K or the Lincolnwood Turkey Trot 5K 10K, which Rachel probably could have guessed. Both of these have become traditions for our Skokie Swifters Run Walk Club. And every year we run it, it just seems to get bigger and bigger with the amount of Swifters that there are. I think at this year's Backlot Dash, we probably had over 40 Swifters show up, and the Turkey Trot probably in the similar range of 30 to 40. And it's just, I can't stress this enough, and I hope people understand how humbling it is to see that. Like when I started the Swifters, we had 11 people show up, and that was amazing to me. Like, wow, these people actually want to come and hang out and run. And to see where we're at now, like when I stop and think about it, it's truly mind-blowing. And I'm just so grateful. We're in Thanksgiving week here, and I'm just so grateful that these people want to do this. So there you go.
But one, when we talk, so, for those of you listening who do know me from the Swifters, I am Swifter West because I do live far away. Not far away. But I grew up in Skokie, so I always joke that I am OG Skokie to the core, like because I lived there my whole upgrowing. Ooh, I don't know what happened there, but I was 2 or 3 weeks from being an OG, original OG with the group. I showed up. It was either the third. I think it was the third meeting that I had found you, and I go back all the way then. I mean, I think we can count on, it'll take not even 2 hands to count the amount of times I've made it to a Tuesday run, but I did make it all the way back then. So I was this close to being an OG.
You're a 2021er.
I am. I'm
2021er, the year of the founding.
But I like to say also I was OG Skokie before Skokie was 2 zip codes.
So. Amazing.
I have that. All right. So literally I could do, there is an endless amount of episodes I think you and I could do on so many topics. There is no way you're not coming back. We've already talked about that in the future.
Thank you.
And I will share with my audience, as I have made it very clear that a marathon is never again going to be on my radar. It was after your past athletes completed that marathon, which is just amazing, that I actually reached out to Sabrina and I said, maybe.
Woo!
I did. I
got another one.
I threw
Another one
I
bites
threw
the dust.
I threw a
Another one bites the dust.
I threw a maybe on there. All right, my friend, I'm honored to call you my friend.
Ditto,
Thank you so much for
ditto.
being on the show. Thank you so much. Don't hang up because I have a couple things I'm going to share with you when we're done. But thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel, for giving me the time and space to chat with you and to share. And I hope everybody listening takes away at least one thing. And I also hope somebody listens to this and says, "Hey, those Swifters sound like a bunch of fun." So thank you.
And folks, they are a bunch of fun. All right, we're gonna do this and hope the reactions work. Maybe they're not working today. This cracks my editor up. Oh, there we go. Okay, we got the thumbs up. Oh, there we go. There are the balloons. That's signing us
So
off.
fun.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.